Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Is My Aura on Straight? I am your host, AC Brown. I am your psychic channel and voice of truth. And I want to welcome you all back to another episode of my podcast, Is My Aura on Straight? And today I have two special guests, the yoga couple. I like to say yogi every time I say, because when I was doing your charts, I did Yogi Matt and Yogi Ash, but the yoga couple. So welcome to Is My Aura on Straight? How are you all doing today?
Absolutely great. Thanks for having us.
Yes, we're so excited. Thank you for having us.
So I've been snooping around on your channels and some of the stuff that you do with your books and everything. My first question to you all, because you all have been really talking about some really heavy stuff lately to your audience. Ash, you just had a live about your money, PTSD and blocks. And Matt, you've been talking about some stuff with pornography and just some healing stuff that you both have been doing. So my first question to you all is your aura on straight?
I love this. Well, I think we have to adjust it every day, but yes.
Okay, so that's good. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the irony is we do this healing work to keep our aura aligned.
Okay. Well, that's good. Because I mean, you talked about some really tough topics. So I want to go back to before you became the yoga couple. And I want to know your story of not when you met, but mostly when you both realized and became self-aware on your spiritual journeys. And what did that do for you when you finally did meet? What was the before meeting?
Yeah, I like this question a lot. Most of the time we get asked like, how did we meet? Right. And then it's like this whole story of the saga of that. But yeah, that's a great question because it's like the work you do before you meet your partner that kind of aligns you to be ready for that relationship. And I kind of have goosebumps now that you asked that because we've never been asked that before about like, where were we before we came together? And, you know, Matt will tell his story, but for me, I think before I met Matt, I was kind of like in the matrix per se. Like I wasn't fully awake. Like I was doing my yoga practice and going to yoga studios and I was reading spiritual books, like diving into it. But I was like at the very beginning stages of that spiritual awakening where you start to kind of come into your truth, right? And realize like the life that you've been shown and the family that you've been grown up in and the way you've seen things be done isn't the only way. And I started to get really curious about that. And I was in kind of like what I would call my like normie relationship. I had like a boyfriend, we had a dog, we worked in like the service industry. And on paper, it looked like really good. Like you should just move forward, get married. And this should be like the thing. Like there's nothing actually wrong. But my soul was yearning for something much deeper. I wanted to have a spiritual companion that I could, do this like inner work with to heal, to find out like my true purpose, to have some sort of shared devotion in whatever context that ended up being. Like, I didn't care. I just wanted somebody that understood, like, we're on a soul journey here. It's not just about this, let's have a career and buy a house and have this perfect life. And I was missing that depth. So I started to actually like pray about it a lot and journal about it. And I was writing like, if I had the choice and like the possibilities were infinite, what would I imagine my day-to-day life actually being like if I didn't just think like, this is the way it is. And I started to journal a lot about like, I wake up on an island, like I'm with my soul companion. And like, I like wrote about like what my regular day would be like. I wrote about like what it would feel like to just be in a normal day together. And I started to like set my intentions on like opening myself up to like other possibilities. And when I started to put my mind into that space, then all of a sudden Matt appeared out of nowhere. Right. So that was kind of the place I was in right before I met Matthew.
Oh, wow. And you, Matt, where were you at?
Yeah, it was a very, very conscious leading up to it. So I guess the backstory on what led us into this shared passion for alleviating suffering is, so I set out my whole life to be a doctor. So and even in my human design, my archetype is the healer. So I evidently was on point subconsciously, because my whole life I've been craving to be the ultimate healer, or in other words, to alleviate suffering of others in my highest, most, biggest potential. How can I do that? And so I pursued so many different avenues of how to do that. I was in naturopathic medical school. And I think to answer that question of like, how did my spiritual awakening totally alter and realign my life and lead me to this point, is I think that was the biggest turning point for me. I had studied psychology in undergrad, and I was always really fascinated by this whole concept of the mind and the ego and all of these topics. But then when I got into naturopathic medical school, I was finally exposed to so many different spiritual beliefs other than what I was raised in. And they were all the Eastern traditions like Buddhism, Hinduism, yoga, things like this, that just blew my mind and changed and utterly changed my life, because I actually left all the conventional forms of healing to be a more holistic healer. And then along that journey, so it was like I left naturopathic medical school, and then I wanted to be a therapist, tried that, and then ran into the same limitations of there's no soul here. There's no, like, we're not talking about the real deeper spiritual context. So I kept running into blockages. And then when I found yoga and enlightenment and spirituality, I saw, this is the real source of suffering. This is where it all starts. If we don't look at these deeper spiritual things, you can give someone the perfect body, perfect mental health, and they can still be depressed. They can still be upset. They can still be sad because they still have to contemplate things like death or loss. And if we don't have a spiritual context, there is no real alleviation from those things.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so that's where I was on this like quest at that time. And then when I was getting really clear on who I wanted to be and what I wanted to share, then I had this massive obsession with finding my companion to share in that journey with. So right before Ash and I met, I was actually doing some really interesting conscious stuff too. I was doing the same thing, writing it out, journaling. I was like, okay, I see my partner. I would write out like what I want it to feel like. What are we doing? What's our life mission together? And all these things of what this would look like. And I even did these things too, where I because I was learning all this information at that time, it was all very new to me, and I was very excited. So I was like, okay, so if we're all connected, then she can hear me right now. And so I would do like these things where I'd be like going throughout my day, and I would be talking to her in my head, and I'd be like, hey babe, just how's your day going? Love you. Just so you know, we're going to find each other soon. And can't wait to see you. And I would do these little, I call them like little kooky things, but I would do these things because I was trying to really experiment and embody this concept of, if we are all connected, then she should be receiving my messages technically. And so I'm going to start acting like she's already there. And so I was doing these little things and journaling and reflecting on it, and really actively pursuing this pursuit of like, I want to find my companion to do this healing work with. And then like Ash said, she was also doing that and her own version of it. And then she literally accidentally Google searched and found my blog, and like this whole magical unfoldment of how she literally just randomly found me. And then the rest is kind of history.
So just destiny, pretty much.
Totally.
But so with that being said, so you both were in spaces where you were doing the work, you were acting as if, visualizing all of that. How did you do that? And how do you suggest people do that? Because everybody wants love and wants to find their ultimate partner. How do you do that when life is happening, and when you are dating, and when you are, dealing with social media, with dating apps and all of that, and staying in that high vibration to do those things, to say, do those little tidbits of, hey, I know you're listening, and stay in that kind of positive mindset to call that person in.
So the immediate thing that's coming to me is to be aware if we are trying to project that image onto somebody who's not that. Like, I was in a relationship, right? And I could have just got stuck on this concept of the type of relationship I wanted and just like projected it onto my current partner. I mean, like we had a whole life together. We lived together. We had a dog. Like it was like this, thing of like, we're probably going to just do this forever now. Like get married and you're the one. Right. And the fear of the unknown, if it's not going to be with that person you're already with, is so daunting that we try to conform the person we're dating or whoever into the thing that we think that they are. And that's actually our imagination being projected onto them. Like we're not seeing them as they are. And so one of the first things I could say is like, I would have never found Matt if I was too busy projecting onto my current boyfriend. Like I would have got caught up in that and just been like not seeing him for who he is and trying to make him be somebody he's not, instead of just having courage and being like, this isn't what I want, and that's okay. It's okay. Like he's a great person. I'm a great person. It doesn't mean like anybody's wrong. It's just, maybe this isn't the right match for me. And I have faith that I do deserve to be. I wouldn't have this dream of this relationship in my heart if it wasn't true for me. Like I believe that the divine put it in my heart because it's my destiny, and it's in my heart because I'm being called to align with it. Like it's constantly reminding me like, hey, are you aligning with this? Are you aligning with this? Are you not? Because you don't believe it, And so stop projecting is my first one, is have courage to open yourself up to that space of, if it's not the person that you're currently with, that doesn't need to be a scary thing. It can be an exciting thing. And so I started to drop that expectation. And when I was journaling, when I pray and journal and meditate on this, the two things I would always say is like, if it's my current partner and he's like magically going to like transform into
into somebody else, right?
Yeah, he's going to just like have this spiritual awakening and do the inner work and all these things. Like, great. I'm all for that. I will be right there. And if it's not, align me, realign me, and I will let go. Like, and also don't forget to ask, like, it doesn't have to be so painful. Like we can always ask for our pain to be like taken from us. Like I always will say like, and that's so scary. And if it's going to hurt, like take that from me. Like, just like, I will show up, just take it from me, And so that was one of the first things. And I had a second thing, but now I forgot. So maybe Matt.
So yeah, I like that as far as if you're in a relationship. And so let's say now if you're not in one, so that was more so my situation. Here's what I did that you can really actively charge this is, first and foremost, you can, I highly recommend writing it out and giving it some time to think about it and give it some visualization. So the core of what I always recommend people to do is stay focused on the feelings and the energy of what you want it to feel like. So instead of describing, say, how you want them to physically look, describe how you want to feel with them. The reason why this is most important is because if we get the ego involved in the external details of it, then we can block the perfect person because we're too fixated on the wrong things.
That's a sign. That's a sign. This is a sign. That's a sign.
Yeah. No. It's like, no, not necessarily. Like you might be missing the person because they don't look the way you want them to look, or they don't have the amount of money you want them to have, or whatever those things are. So instead we want to focus on, like, let's say those two topics. So let's say on the topic of romance, well, why don't you just focus on, we're madly in love. We're so passionate. We appreciate each other. We see each other's gifts. We see, we cherish and enjoy our time together, right? Like describe that type of stuff, because that's what you really want anyway. We don't really care about the external stuff at the end of the day. We're all technically, we want the subjective stuff. It's how we feel when we're with people that we love. So focus on the feelings so that your ego doesn't get blocked by the external stuff. And it, like, let's say with money, even don't say like, oh, we want to have this much money. Say, I want to feel abundant. I want to feel secure. Do you see? Like, focus on the feelings you want. And then that way, when you're dating and when you're coming across these people, focus on how you feel with them. And then you'll say, oh, this is what I've been wanting to feel. And now I'm feeling it. Wow, this must be the person. Like this, it'll help you be able to see through the ego in the times of when you are dating people. Because the ego will always, technically, just so everybody can hear this, like the ego's never going to be satisfied. Yes, exactly.
It ruins everything.
Yes, exactly. And it's never going to be satisfied in a relationship because the ego will always nitpick and it will always find things it doesn't like and it will always crave novelty. So even if you do find a beautiful, perfect relationship, the ego will eventually get bored with it and want something different. So we always want to do everything we can to get out of the ego and stay in our feeling, where which is another way of saying we want to stay in our soul, right? We want to stay in our consciousness. So my big thing was feeling based. My whole like in writing out vision process was, what do I want this to feel like on the day to day? What do I want our life to feel like? What do I want my time with her to feel like? I mean, and you can get as specific as you want, because the cool thing about this is you really can't go wrong describing the subjective feelings, because anybody that opens the door for the universe to be able to give you the right person, because you're not limiting it with, oh, well, they need to be this tall and they need to be this and they need to be from this country, and like, you know what I mean? It's like we technically are the ones making it so difficult for the universe to send us our person, because we're saying, no, it only needs to come in this way. And then the universe is like, man, I had like 1,000 other ways I could have given you.
Right. I could have given you your dream person, but you were worried about the hair color or something.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of funny. We have to kind of shed all of those more superficial things and stay focused on what actually matters. And then I think the other thing too is just being open and knowing that you first of all deserve it and accept it. I think we have to do a lot of inner work around becoming also. Oh, here's a good one to help with that. One of the biggest things as I was writing this all out is I looked at that list and I said, okay, am I that? Now, whatever we want in our partner, we better damn well make sure we are. So if I want my partner to be spiritual and like self-aware and accountable, I better be the embodiment of that as well. So one of the fun things that I focused on while I was waiting for her is I would always tell myself, I would say, hey, I'm just getting ready for you. So if I haven't found you yet, I'm going to assume that I'm not ready so that I can stay empowered and realize I am doing something each and every day rather than just waiting around. So the way you can look at it is, if you haven't found that person yet, it means you're not a match yet. And so that gives you something to be doing. That gives you something to be focusing on, which is to say,
not in like a negative way.
Yeah, not in a negative way at all.
It's almost like we're being protected. Like if we weren't ready yet and we did enter that relationship maybe too early.
Yeah, maybe you would.
Right. You would have lose it, mess it up. Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so the universe and divine is making sure that when we are united with that person, like we're going to be ready and
it can be the real deal.
We're going to have the tools to sustain it and to work through whatever comes up, because it's not just going to be rainbows and butterflies.
Right. I was going to say, because, you know, as my therapist would say, her favorite question is to ask me, what do you want to heal in your next relationship? And I was just like, what? when we first started working together, I was like, excuse me? I was like, that's why I'm here, like to figure all of that out before. She was like, you think that you're not going to heal in your relationship or in a marriage? And I was like, but that's why I'm here. She started busting out laughing. She was like, I'm sorry, that was unprofessional. But she was like, that's not how it works. So with that being said, of you doing all of that pre-work, when you do get into this relationship that you've called in, and then those things come up, now, when you're doing that work, because you two talk about some really tough issues and things, how do you face that together in your growth? Because you're still growing separately, and now you have your person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've really built our relationship on inner work, like being the foundation of our relationship, that together, this really, we call it the yoga of relationship. So it means like, you know, yoga is this path of self-realization, of enlightenment, of ultimately getting free, right? Getting free from all this ego stuff we're talking about. And so there's so many ways you can go on this path. Path is like infinite ways. One of those ways is you can get free through your relationship, and that's called the yoga of relationship. So in that sense, your partner is your guru. They are your greatest teacher. They reveal to you your ignorance. It's their job. It's their duty. It's like their karmic. It's literally like you guys came down here together so that you could do this together. Like they're going to play that role for you on purpose for your awakening. So there's nothing that's coming up in your relationship that's just like a fluke or an accident or shouldn't be happening. It's all purposeful, and every single situation that is uncomfortable or intense is an opportunity for us to get free of something. And so that's an exciting way to look at it. It's like, oh, this is coming up because we must be ready to get free from something. Instead of, oh, this is coming up because we're misaligned and you're
the problem.
You're the problem for us
You're
to
the
be together. And so like the world, you know, in a sense, has painted this picture of like, that's what relationship is only for fun. And if anything disturbing comes up, it's a sign you're not aligned. And it's like, it's perfect. Like they're bringing up your stuff. Like as long as you both are committed to this approach, you can have a very successful relationship. Now, if you're not both committed to this approach, you can still have a successful relationship. That one person who is going to become extremely enlightened through that process of staying in a relationship with someone who's not willing to look at their stuff, right? And they're going to keep working on themselves throughout that. But we're in this commitment together, the yoga of relationship. So everything is an opportunity for us to get free from whatever's blocking us from peace, compassion, love, all those good things. If it's not in that moment, if we're in our low self, anger, blame, fear, that's coming up because we need to see it and their partner's revealing that to us.
So opportunity to heal it. So to answer that question, like, what does it look like and what do we do? How do we approach it? So first and foremost, yeah, totally. Like what I take from what Ash was just saying is, first and foremost, you got to know, like, is there a buy-in? Are we doing this together or is this just me? And that's always a huge thing we're helping couples through is sometimes your partner doesn't want to, and you got to just know that and then work with that accordingly. So let's just assume though, for the sake of this conversation, that you both totally are in. So when we're both in agreement, I was actually just talking to a couple, one of my clients last night, actually, we were going through this. So it's like super fresh on my mind. So first and foremost is, I think it's so important in relationships to realize that the discomfort you are feeling whenever you get triggered is not coming from the partner or from the situation. The discomfort comes from the belief that is getting triggered. So for example, let's say Ash does something and it makes me feel really insecure and judged. Now, she didn't do that. The belief that I am insecure and judged is what's making me hurt, what's making me uncomfortable. So first and foremost, the biggest thing as a couple to know is that the pain and discomfort we're feeling is not the truth of who we are. It's not each other. It's a program from our past getting brought to the surface. And it's extremely uncomfortable, yes, because it's usually a past trauma. However, don't confuse that pain is not from the current moment. That pain is something old that has never been resolved. And so this keeps you on the same team, because here's the biggest thing that is so important for us all to understand about the human psyche is that when we are uncomfortable, the human ego does two huge ways to avoid it. It will project it, and that's in the form of blaming it outside itself. So it'll say, you're the problem, the world's the problem, the government's the problem, anything outside of itself. And it will always project the discomfort coming from outside so that it never has to take any accountability and be, looked at. The next thing it will do is it will mask. So you got to be careful. Am I masking? Am I chasing drugs, alcohol, porn? Do I just want to have sex with my partner so we don't have to talk about this anymore? Like, you name it. Or do we need to go have a date and have some food, right? All our favorite ways to mask. So we got to be careful. Am I masking? So these are two huge mechanisms of the ego of how it avoids discomfort. So instead, what we have to do is, when we know that, we make sure, okay, am I projecting? Am I masking? No. Okay, I'm here. I'm sitting with it. I'm present. I'm just going to, my biggest thing whenever these triggers happens is just take a breath and let it be there. And just be like, yep, my mind is swirling with tons of like fear and negative self-talk, right, and attack and doubt or whatever, right? It's got all this stuff going on. My body's freaking out. I'm tense. I'm anxious. I'm whatever, right? And it's okay. Just let it be there. Breathe and just be like, yep, it is there. And I'm watching it. And what this does is you finally get out of it and you can watch it, because in a relationship, so long as you can't watch it, you're screwed, because you will become the problem. You'll get sucked into it. So if I think, going back to that example, that Ash is like, oh, she's the one judging me, she's the one creating all this pain in me, then my ego is going to make her the enemy in that moment. And so my biggest thing with when I'm working with couples is to tell them, like, you got to first and foremost not make each other the enemy. You have to stay on the same side, because as soon as your ego determines that your partner is the enemy, there's no coming back from that, because now you're just going to fight.
Right. You're just going to fight.
Exactly. Because once everybody's ego is triggered and gets defensive, you're locked in. There's no healing going to come from that. So first and foremost, I think, is just when we get triggered to see, okay, we're actually solving this together. And the discomfort that is arising is not each other. It's from a past trauma, a past belief. So with this example, to wrap it up, it's like, if Ash is triggering a bunch of judgment and insecurity in me, we then sit with that and I go, I become curious about it. I say, wow, interesting. Where have I felt this before? And maybe even, when's the earliest I can remember feeling this way? And all of a sudden I'm taken back to my mom ripping me for like spilling a cup. And what are you doing? Why did you do that? And then now all of a sudden I'm like, so I'm still dealing with this 5-year-old version of me that's never been resolved, because he still feels deeply insecure and judged because of, mom was laying into me for making a mistake. And now you start to be like, oh, so that's what this is right now. And then, you can actually work with that, because now you're not attacking each other. You're on the same team trying to unpack it.
No, that's a great example. I think going back to the calling in, you want to call in someone who's going to be able to do that with you and be in the trenches, especially emotionally and spiritually. Because I think people miss that part, because that's why I asked you, when the trauma and the triggers happen. I've been in a relationship before where I did not even feel safe enough to go through that with someone. And I'm sure a lot of other people have been in relationships where you don't even feel safe to do that type of work together, because that's intense. When you get triggered, when traumas happen and things like that. And then now I'm supposed to look to this person to like kind of ride out with me into the sunset on this healing journey of this thing, when I don't even trust them, that they have my best interests at heart. So I think that's a big piece of everybody listening, just calling in someone as well who can ride with you on that emotional journey, on that healing journey, because it's always going to happen. Yeah. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a great point. And I want to say too, what it's making me think of is, it's so important too, because see, they're going to usually get partner, because when you start to work through that, they might get offended. Like, this is what I was seeing, like with this couple I was working with yesterday, is like, so let's say I'm working through like what if it's more personal? What if it's like, I don't want to be married, and I'm like working through that belief. She doesn't want to hear that. That could offend her if she's not in the right space. She might be like, what? You're working through what? Or let's talk about the topic of addiction. I just, I really just want to go back to all my addiction. I want to go look at porn. I want to go drink. I want to go smoke. I want to go do all my things. And she's like, what? You want to jeopardize, so when you're working through those types of traumas where it really impacts your partner, I think one huge caveat that's so powerful, if you guys, for those listening that want to do this work with the person, here is my biggest, like, it's such a subtle trick, but it's a game changer, is before you unpack what it is, say, hey, this is just what's coming up for me. I don't believe it. I'm aware that this is a past program and I need help sifting through it. But I want you to know that I don't actually, I'm not indulging in believing in this, but it is what I'm dealing with in my head. Okay. So instead of, because see, what we found over the years of doing this work together is, let's say I would say, well, I just have all these beliefs that being single is better and I should just stay, I should just be doing my thing and I don't want to be married and this is a mistake.
Say I have all these beliefs. Usually people just say
they act out.
Yeah. I just think like I think I would be better. I want to be single or whatever. They're not exploring like,
where did that come from? What if that's just the belief?
Or what if that's just a coping mechanism or a response? That unawareness is what triggers our partner, because we think, oh, this is who they are, right? Yeah. So the idea of what Matt's saying, it has been so helpful in our relationship when we finally got to that point of figuring that out, of separating ourselves when we're processing with our partner of, okay, I don't want to leave this relationship. I don't want to go cheat on you. I don't want to be with other people, but this temptation does boil up within me. I feel it happen. Like I get these thoughts and it's like, it feels intrusive and like, I don't want to believe these things. And it's not that I want to act on them, but they do come up and I do want to look at it and I do want to heal it. Then it's like, oh, well, let me talk with you about that. We can work through that together. And I'm not offended. And I realize like, okay, let's figure out what that coping mechanism is from, like, why do you want to run every time things get hard? Why run? And then it's like, we're on the same team instead of like,
you
offended.
believe that?
Yes.
You think that? What?
Yeah.
Right.
Screaming at each other. And it's like, yeah.
Right. And the reason why I asked that is because after watching your recent live and, when this airs, whoever looks at it, go to, your Instagram and watch it about your money trauma and your PTSD. And that's a big thing within couples. So how did you come to Matt with that or, bring that up? Because you said you were dealing with for about 2 or 3 years and you work together. So you earn an income together as well. And then you have one person that has money issues and money trauma and blocks. So how do you rectify that within yourself and also not hurt the business of the relationship? You know what I mean? Because that is your livelihood,
Yeah. Also, let me just say one thing real quick, and then it's totally your process. So you dive into it. I would say one thing real quick that helped for me is, so we came from 2 very different financial childhoods. And so one of the things that we realized was this isn't about again, notice that this first step is so powerful. It's to realize this isn't about what's happening right now. It's about what happened in the past. So if Ash grew up in an extremely insecure environment and I grew up in a very secure environment, of course we're not seeing eye to eye on it. And I don't understand why she's afraid. And then likewise, she doesn't understand why I'm so relaxed. So that I would just say first is to realize remember always that it's coming from somewhere else. And then I think that finally gave us the groundwork to start unpacking it. So I'm going to let Ash take it away.
Kind of exactly what I was going to say is that the thing that really helped me finally have the space to heal was this realization Matt's talking about, where he, instead of
because then I don't take it personal.
Okay, so I'm having this trauma, right? I'm always afraid. Let me just break it down for the listeners. Is I'm always afraid that we're going to not have enough money. I'm always stressed about bills. I'm hyper fixated, or I was. Let's put it in the past. I'm not this anymore. I was hyper fixated on, just
safety,
lack.
Security. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm always in lack. So I need to think ahead and make sure and, get things. And then so I'm preoccupied all the time with preparing to not be in
destitute, right? Exactly.
And
no
he's
disasters.
Over here going surfing, chilling. Like
I'm preparing for abundance.
Literally gardening. This is a hilarious thing, you guys. I've had a trauma or a preoccupation with him gardening, because when I see him garden, it says to me, you're not helping us
You're
survive.
not in fight or flight with me. What are you doing?
Right. You're just planting seeds. How dare you? No, I could see how that could trigger someone with money issues, especially safety, security coming from that background, because you see someone who's just, like you said, going surfing. Like, hello, I'm worried about 6 months from now. Why are you surfing?
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
You nailed it.
This
exactly.
Is it. And so how we got through this was this final piece of, honestly, this is the yoga relationship, y'all. I know we have to take accountability, right? I have to do this work on my own. I need to look at myself. But when you're in a relationship, your relationship is a re-simulation for your childhood. You are now creating your own home.
Sorry, that scared me. Maybe that's why I'm still single. Sorry.
It's like a thing, it's like you're going to go create a home now. Where's your first home? You had a home environment. Now you're recreating your own home. And now you're the adults of that home instead of your parents being the adults of the home. It's like this reenactment.
Yeah.
And so you can heal it without your partner knowing this about you, but you would need to be superhuman,
Right.
What we really
it's impossible.
need, it's hard, it's effing hard. And so what's helpful is in this yoga relationship is that we need to know our partner and we need to know their inner child wounds and we need to know their traumas. That's a love language. You understanding
because
who your partner actually is and where they come from, so that you're not projecting onto them in the golden shadow way. You're not projecting onto them oh, I just assume you're like me. I just assume you're like me. And it's like, no,
No.
literally, like, I'm not. I have extreme fear around my security. And so when he started to show me that he saw that and like showed me love instead of just being annoyed, like, come on, we're fine. Come on. Like almost feels like gaslighting because
right. Because that's what it sometimes comes across when you have that different perspective, whether it's money, religion, just socioeconomic status, just tons of things, education. It does look like gaslighting because it's like this one person doesn't have experience with that. And so they're like, what are you, what's the problem? Why are you worried? There's money in the bank. And you're like, that doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
So,
and this is like, this is in our relationship. This is in the economy. This is in society at large. It's like the reason why we're having these issues because exactly that people cannot see that what other people are struggling with is real because they don't have that experience.
And our ego is always projecting our view and our background onto each other subconsciously. We don't realize we're doing it. But one of the things we unpacked was, oh, I guess I didn't realize that subconsciously I kind of made this assumption that you're the same as me. And we all do this with each other. Here's a really good example. The only reason why we get mad at each other, like say in traffic or in the stores and stuff, whatever, if you think about it, it's because we say, oh my gosh, they should know better. It's like, well, according to what? We projected access. We always do this subconsciously. We project onto each other. You know what I know. And it's like, what if they don't?
From his paradigm, different. The way I'm acting is completely unnecessary.
Like silly,
right? Yeah. It's because from where he is, everything is fine. So it doesn't make any sense. So when he finally started to be like, wow, I see now, like, this is real in your body. Your body has a memory.
Your nervous system doesn't lie.
Yeah.
Your body doesn't lie.
Yes. And it's not real in the sense that it's actually like we have security now. We have a home. Like we're okay. We're financially stable. We're responsible. Everything is actually totally fine in like the physical realm. But my body and internal world is still in the past, in that trauma.
Still unresolved.
And it's still unresolved. So he started to meet me where I was instead of projecting onto me where he thinks I should be. And when he made that switch and started talking to me from where I actually am and not where he thinks I should just be because what's wrong with me, that's when I started to heal because I finally felt seen. I finally felt heard. I finally felt understood. Right. He stopped getting mad at me for having a panic attack and instead come hold me and be like, you're safe.
Right.
I'm taking care of you. Because he was
taking care and talking to that part of you, that younger part of you.
I think I want to say something super important on what made that possible is until we clarify. That's why you'll notice I keep coming back to this topic is because this is honestly the biggest blockage to getting anywhere in a healing journey with a partner is so long as we take it personal, you're going to get stuck. So the only thing that helped me get out of this is yet again, I realized, oh, this isn't about me. And right now, this isn't about me because see, so long as I think her insecurity is about me, my ego takes it so personal.
He's like offended.
I get offended
like, we have everything,
and I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm an amazing man. I'm showing up. You're fine. Like what? Like you're like
look what we've done. Look what we've accomplished. What are you talking about? And she's like crying like, hello, I'm afraid that we might not eat tomorrow. And it's like random. It's like, what the hell is going on? I totally understand.
Exactly. And so, my ego can even go as far as getting like so confused and being like, dude, like you're spoiled. Like, what's your thing? Like, you're so fine. Right. So from my perspective, I'm projecting it that it's so personal and I'm focusing in this moment. So you'll notice like this whole conversation today, this first huge step of discerning what something is and where it comes from, I just cannot reiterate enough because so long as we get lost in thinking it's right now and in this moment, we won't make any progress because we will get offended. So once I realized, oh, this is 5-year-old Ash growing up in a home with her mom on drugs and everybody's like stressed and it's an extreme environment that I have no relationship to. Now I'm like, oh, well, of course I can be there for that. Of course I can show up for you for that. Of course I can pour all this love into you and not get offended by that. And so that's, I think, the biggest thing to really, really help is to see that it is not personal. it's not that she like has this issue with me. It's that this part of her needs to be addressed and loved.
And for anybody who does have this trauma with money, like just to like give you some actual help for, you know, not even like putting it with your partnership, is just start to actually work on being present. Like touch the things in your house, like make a relationship with what you do have. Like it's like paradigm blindness. We don't see where we actually are. And so we're unnecessarily in this trauma because we literally are blind to we're not in it anymore. So it's doing that work to be like, today, this is where I am. And like, I am safe and I do have this. I do have, you know, help, or I do have money, or I do have, you know, whatever you do have, even if it's like me in my story on my Instagram that you were referring to, is at the time where I was at my lowest, I did have help. I had a friend helping me. I had a friend who gave me shelter and helped me have a job. And like, I was being helped. And so it's like focusing on that we are, you know, now and always coming back to the present so that we don't keep living in the trauma of this imaginary past.
I love that. I love that. So my last couple of questions, because both of you are Libras, and I was like, I wonder how they do that. Like my mom's a Libra, so I'm always like, another mom, like, wow. But how is it working together as a couple? What is that besides the, you know, of course, nuances of there's sometimes challenges and everything, but overall, for the big picture of your purpose, how does that feel to like have someone who you can work together with?
I honestly think our joke is, since you brought up the Libra thing, is, you know, Libras are all about relationship.
Right.
And so we actually think it's hilarious and apropos because, of course, we're the yoga of relationship teachers because we're two Libras. And so we're obsessed with it. And we like love looking at relationships and helping people in their relationships and being in our own relationship. And so I think, honestly, it's kind of why we are who we are. And it makes perfect sense that we do this work together because that's what, you know, we're all about. And also I think too with Libra, the Libra aspect of it is we're always craving to find balance. Mm-hmm. And so with that, using my own example, I am extreme as heck. Like I swing to one side and I'm like, oh, this isn't working. And then I swing to the other side and then it's working. And then finally I go, okay, I gotta be in the middle. And that's kind of like this process. And so I think it's kind of funny for us. That's, I think, the large part of how we've become who we are, how we teach what we teach is because of that extreme trying to find balance. I think it helps us be able to relate and understand, like, for example, with my addictions, it's like to understand how to help people through addiction. I had to go become an addict, then get myself out of it, then become really staunchly sober, and then realize that was like, now I'm too rigid. And now like, right. Like it was just kind of this funny thing of, I think that's literally what makes our teachings what it is because of that Libra quality of like wanting people to find love, wanting people to have a relationship with themselves, with their partner, with divine. So I think it's just kind of obvious. Like, yeah, we're the Libra couple for sure.
Libra couple. And so also too, you have very different human design aura types. So how are you hanging in there, Ash? Because I know you're a reflector, and I'm just like, okay, you have this energy over here. Like, how are you doing?
Are you all right?
Are you okay? Blink twice. If you need some rest, blink twice.
Yeah, Matt is Matt's a manifestor. I'm a reflector. So it's been both things. Like it's been really intense. And it's also when we get into our, you know, potential and our truth, it's like it's a magical combination. So we're always working on like staying in our highest potential with our aura types. So like Matt is like that initiating aura, and then I'm here being the reflector. And the way that like I've framed it to help Matt like care about my guidance without eating me alive because he thinks I'm initiating him or telling him what to do is that, you know, he's like in his leadership and he's an initiator. And what I can do from a higher perspective is like give him guidance or like foresight on what I see, because I tend to like be able to reflect the environment or situation really well. And that it's not me telling him what to do. It's just like, it's like if he had like, I don't know, if he was like playing like some kind of game where he has like a kingdom or something. It's like, I can say like, hey, if you go to the right, like this is what you're going to face. And if you go to the left, this is what you're going to face. And these will be the repercussions of that, and just leave the choice up to him. And I'm just there to reflect and give the options of what I'm seeing. I feel like I'm like, like on the ships where people are like able to look out and see the icebergs ahead, or like forewarn. I'm really good at that, is just reflecting. And him as the initiator, he's really good at like taking charge and initiating and taking action on things where I can't take all that action. Like I can just see stuff and like
right.
And so it's when we work together, that's beautiful, because I can have all these brilliant ideas of like where the future is heading and like what we need to do in society and like what's the next trending like thing. And I can just see, what's happening. And then he can be like, okay, I will make a plan for that and initiate that. But we have to both see each other's gifts and honor that, and value our differences to make that potential work really well. And when we do, we crush it. Like we're amazing. We make magic together. And when we don't, it's like Mr. and Mr. Smith, and you should just get away because it's dangerous.
To speak to that, it's really, so the human design part is fascinating. Like her and I it's so true for us in our experiment, as we've like really paid attention and been into human design for the last couple of years now. So it's totally that to a T. And I think where we run into trouble is if she sees, she's being modest. She seriously can write me out like 30 things that like could improve. And she always can do that. She can always see all these things. Well, that's the
beauty of a reflector. So, I'm a projector, so I know that as well, but that's the beauty of a reflector. They're going to reflect back to you. I always say my whole thing is, if you want to know if you're going to work for a company or a brand or anything, hopefully there's a reflector there and you can go ask them what's going on. And then because you're going to know the truth about it.
Yes. But then when I'm in my not self, I get so offended.
Right.
And I don't want to hear all that stuff. I just want to hear accolades and like, good job.
Right. It is what it is.
Right. It's just like, well, this is an okay place to work because, or I always say, if you want someone who is going to be like the company mascot, hire a reflector. If it's the good place to work, they will reflect that and they will be the ultimate like brand ambassador for you. So I love the reflector energy.
It's also funny though in our relationship, because if I'm not doing well, then it's a reflection of our relationship.
Right. Nothing's happening.
It's a lot of responsibility. Yeah.
But it's good though.
Oh yeah, I know. I know that my favorite thing is to say, like, I definitely know that I wouldn't be the man I am today without Ash. I mean, she is my greatest, like, everything. She's my total queen, and absolutely, I know that as hard as it is to get that feedback and that reflection all the freaking time, I live with a mirror,
right.
So what hurts is when I don't show up and initiate on all the things she sees, it makes her extremely anxious and exhausted because disappointed.
Yes.
So, and damn, with all my judgment wounds, man, I'm having to heal a lot because my wife can feel really disappointed with me sometimes if I'm not initiating, because she needs me to do that. She needs me to take the energy because she doesn't have it. So I think that's the biggest thing with human design that we've had to learn is, for me as a manifestor, we don't want to be initiated. So it's a tricky thing. So what I've had to really learn how to do is I'll write down everything she wants or that she sees, and I'll like write it all down. And then what we've learned as a tact and skill for this is then I initiate on those things rather than her being like, okay, we need to do these things now. Literally do this, this, and this, Matt. So that was like, this has been the balance we've found, because for any manifestors out there, if someone tells you what to do, it probably ruffles you and makes you a little annoyed. Whereas when you feel like it's your idea and you get to launch it, it feels really magical. And we just like have endless energy and we get it done and we feel great about it. So that was our biggest balance, is we write it out and then I'm able to initiate on it so that I feel really good. I feel empowered. And then she knows she feels really good because she knows I'm going to chip away at that list.
Right. I love that. So my last two questions. So if you could do You have to choose one or the other and give a reason why. Do the last 5 years over or go 5 years ahead? Which would you pick and why?
Whoa, what a question. Well, I definitely want to do the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go to
Yeah.
go to the next 5 years. Okay, just shoot there.
The last 5 years were a brutal gauntlet for us.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want to go back.
No,
Okay.
we're good.
No, I don't ever want to go back to that.
Okay, so the next 5 years. Okay, and my last question: what do you believe is your superpower?
Ooh. Okay, I think I'll take it away first. Okay, so, okay,
Can we
I think
answer for each other instead?
Okay, yes, answer for each other.
Okay, we're gonna switch it up.
Okay.
Okay, let's do it.
I think that Matt's superpower is he's a healer. Like he meets people that, I mean, I just watch him in awe. Like he can talk to anybody and have breakthroughs with them in the most profound ways that he makes people feel really loved and seen. And I feel like when he's in his truth, he almost has like this, like, I don't know, like kind of like a Christ-like energy. Like when he's helping somebody, it's like unconditional love, unconditional, like holding. And I watch people like who are withering away, like rebloom, like just when he helps somebody or when he gives advice or when he's, and I just think you're like a really prophetic, I don't know, like you just channel it. It's just, I think your gift is you're a healer. And I love watching you do that.
My favorite thing is to go into hell with people and be like, I'm getting you the out of here. We are getting out together.
Maybe
like
it's
we
not
are getting
Christ-like
out.
energy. It's more like Shiva too. It's like warriors in there. Yeah, like the stuff that he deals with, like on a daily basis.
So heavy. But I love it.
I could never talk to the.
Yeah, you definitely could never. You would like be in a ball, fetal position, crying like every day.
Everything. It's, he helps people out of suicidal lows. Like it's deep, and like he does it with such grace, and like he's just not afraid.
I get so pumped
and
on
he
it.
Doesn't feel like, oh no, like I don't know if I can handle this with this person. He loves it. He dives right in, and like I would be like, I don't know, maybe you should go get professional help. Like,
right.
He's like, he's there, and I just so I guess like I just love seeing that about you.
Okay, so for Ash, her superpower is, we kind of already touched on it a little bit, but I have never met. Okay, here's a way to word it. She is the ultimate oracle. I'm married to an oracle. Like I have my own legit oracle. Like Ash's superpower is you wouldn't even believe, she can look at anything and just sum it up, understand it completely down to its aura. I've seen her with people where she can be in someone's presence and meet someone, and she can know their whole life, what they're dealing with, what's going on, what they need to be aware of, and how to do this, what their next step is. And it's a level of intuition and like awareness and oracleness that I have just, it's freaking mind blowing. It's like extremely psychic. And the other thing too is the predictions she'll have for us. It's like she'll have these predictions throughout our life. She'll literally be like, yeah, I think we're going to probably, like this one time she was like, yeah, I think we're going to go live in California for a short while. Then we're going to move to Hawaii. I think we're going to be moving to Hawaii. This was like years ago. Sure enough, all that happened. And but not like, obviously it was just like, oh, this person invited us to do this and this.
Right.
So future premonitions, she can look at a business and she can sum up all the things that are not working and what they need to fix. And it's just like this level of magic. And I just refer to it as the oracle, because that ability to see through things, just see and help them reach their potential. I think the loving, cool part about this oracle nature of her is she can help anyone and anything reach its potential if the person's willing to put in the energy. And that's why I love her so much and cherish her so much, because I know, like I just said earlier, she helps me become my ultimate self. That's her gift. She helps people realize their ultimate potential. And it's like, wow, what a beautiful gift to give people their true self to them and be like, here's who your true self is. And here's what you need to do to become that version of you that I know you really want to be.
Oh, that was sweet. So where can everybody find you all? And I'll put it in the show notes and everything.
We're the Yoga Couple on all social media, TikTok, Instagram, at the Yoga Couple. You can also go to theyogacouple.com, and our book is The Inner Work.
Yes,
and
The
you can
Inner
order
Work.
it on Amazon.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was a great conversation. I'm sure you will help some single people and some couples who are probably in distress.
Thank you so much for having us. This was such a pleasure and a joy. Like, I just really enjoyed this conversation so much.
Awesome.